How's Bangkok?
Interesting.
Is it interesting?
Kind of mental. So I live in a very western area, but there's a lot of high rises immediately around me. My apartment's on the 21st floor. I have to pop my ears every time I go up and down the lift.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I'm 21 stories up. And I got a nosebleed today. And that's the first nosebleed I've had in my life. We may have to edit. We probably have to edit that out because I probably just shouldn't talk about it at all.
Yes, there you go.
We'll edit that bit out.
We should start. We should start every episode with one of us saying, "We'll edit that bit out," and then just go from there.
Yeah, just cut it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other things like never touch the top of people's heads.
You've been there one day. How do you know all this? How many people's hair did you ruffle before you found that out?
Oh, okay, I pretty much crowd surfed off the plane. It's very odd. But I mean, like, it's every country has their own weird things. Like in Ireland, we say, "Oh, we call each other a cunt." Yeah. So it's apples and oranges, really.
So I always found that a fun one. It was like, you're in the bar and you're like, "Jimmy over there, he's a cunt." He's like, yeah. But Porrick now, he's a sick puppy. And you're like, there's no curse words there, but that's much worse.
Oh God,
like, yeah. Oh Jesus Christ, what's wrong with him?
Like trying to explain to this American woman I work with, and I was like, I should probably explain a few things because she went to say something and then she went, "Oh no, I might offend you." And I was like, "I'm Irish, so it's probably very hard to offend me."
Yes. In fact, if you try to offend us, we find that cute.
Yes, yeah. It's just like, we use swear words like punctuation, and we're if I don't like you, I will be extremely polite to you. And she's like, right, and I'm like, it's just an Irish thing. We're horrible to our friends.
Yep.
And like setting one of your mates' hair on fire when he's drunk is a bit of a laugh, but like you don't like someone, you're like, well, yes, of course, I will do that for you right away. Indeed. It's like, it's very strange. Yeah. So
I'd love to help you with that and just leave it at that.
Of course. The dimensions of my apartment make no sense. So I have quite a big sitting room. I'm sitting in the corner here because I haven't got a PC desk yet.
Yeah.
I'm on my PC. I was on the laptop for anyone watching.
I was going to say,
it's kind of moving slightly.
I've got a microphone arm and things like that, and you look like you're in a white void. You're recording from the scene in a horror movie where someone's hiding in a closet while the killer stalks around the place.
Hang on. Let me put a whole table there. But yeah, so I have there's the 4-seater table here. And then there's a couch, like a 3-seater couch with a TV opposite it. And then there's my kitchen's there with a slidey door. And the balcony that has my washing machine on it. Because my washing machine wouldn't be in my apartment. Why would that happen? You have it out in the balcony.
Of course.
And then there's the bathroom. The bathroom has a bidet. It has the full electronic one. Like you sit down and there's a launch control system.
It talks to you.
It's like, this is either going to clean my hole or fire me through the ceiling. Or the other. And you're kind of terrified of it for the first while because you're like, sure, notions. And in my bedroom, it runs the entire width of the apartment. The bed is big enough that 3 people could fit in it. If I was sleeping
two of me.
No, if I was sleeping in the center, I'd have to roll over twice to get out, either side. Just because, it's just fucking enormous. I can walk in and out to work now in 20 minutes. It's grand. Though it is 30-something degrees when you're walking in and out, so it's a stroll. I'm sure I could do it in 10 minutes if it was 20 degrees, but when it's 35 you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna take the time here.
I was in Nevada one time and we stopped into a gas station to, that thing where you leave the nozzle directly in the van and just let it fill up and you just walk away. You're gonna get it in a credit card in a minute, and it was like a covered gas station, and across the street, across the 4 lanes of traffic, was a tobacconist. And I knew that there's a particular type of cigarettes only sold in Nevada called Death brand cigarettes. And they've got the highest tar and the highest carcinogens, all the good stuff. Everything they can really increase. Anything they can increase numbers on to get the flavor, they put more of it in, the densest cigarettes. But I was like, I don't smoke myself, but I want to run across the road and get a pack so I can bring them home and be handing them out to people and, mess with people. And it was maybe creeping up on 40 degrees and I walked out into the direct sunlight. I went, oh no. And I couldn't get across the street. I had to go back in and buy a Gatorade to make the trip. And even then, I wanted a buddy to go with me in case I didn't make it across the lanes of traffic.
Anyways.
Yes.
So yeah.
So this episode is Cult Classics.
Indeed.
Just as I said that, I realized we only said that to each other once, so it's possible we both did different research. And like you were expecting something completely different.
Well, so I have done both. Everything I have picked relates to cults.
Oh, fantastic.
As well as being a cult classic.
Fantastic.
Because I thought I'd be a smart artist. But also I am so confident because I haven't done a backup for any of these. Because if I pick something and you've picked the same thing, it's probably not as much of a cult classic as we think.
That's probably true, yes.
So I'm like, no backup. You just go for it. We just rock it out.
I'm not gonna lie, for each one I picked one that's like super fucking obvious that I'd be remiss not to talk about, and then a slightly more unknown one.
Okay, so I'm going first on all of them, is what you're saying?
Yes, let's put you first here. What was your movie choice?
Kill List.
All right, I haven't seen Kill List, but I know of it.
So Kill List is... So it's weird. It's one of those films that was made in 2011 by Ben Wheatley.
Right.
He had done like one film before that. It was like a crime film. But since then he's done like 4 or 5 British like kind of dark comedy films. So he did The Holiday on Caravanners or whatever it's called.
I have seen Kill List. It's your man from Utopia and Smiley, the dude who was Wheels in...
exactly. It's Michael Smiley.
Michael Smiley.
Neil Maskell. Neil Maskell is the other guy.
Right.
Neil Maskell is... I fucking love him as an actor. And I just... Do you know what it is, right? So we were talking about Manhunter before. And Cult McElhenney is in that. Right. He was also in The Losers, and he's the mechanic in Fight Club, and he's in Aliens 3. And for years I've been waiting for him to just get a lead in something big, like Mindhunter, and I was brilliant because he's a great actor. Neil Maskell is like the English one of them for me. Every time I watch him in something, I'm like, he is so good, he's so watchable, and he just and like Utopia for a while was like, yes, that's it. That's his thing, like. And funny enough, Utopia was my TV series.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's an overlap here because
that's fair enough.
Michael Smiley is a guest star in Utopia as well.
So Michael Smiley, obviously, I know him as Wheels from Spaced, and it's such a comedy role.
Yeah, Wheels of Flaherty. Well, he's a stand-up comedian.
And he started as a stand-up comedian, yeah. The Nordy accent really lends itself well to being kind of comedy, and he's got one where, I mean, all Nordy accents have an undercurrent of fucking danger to them anyway. Just threatening.
Yeah, something. I mean, like there's no better accent to say the words of "I'll have your kneecaps broken." Yeah. It's just natural. It's the Nordy version of "Oh, Milk Cadagum Dulgady and Laris." Yeah. It's
come to Northern Ireland. That's not a suggestion. That's their tourist logo.
He's in he's also in Luther, which is the other thing Smiley's been in, like kind of the other big series. So he's in Luther, the Idris Elba kind of. It's one of those BBC specials that they do a season of 3 or 4 episodes and leave it a year or two, do another season of 2 or 3 episodes, leave it. Kind of like the way they do Sherlock and those, like. Yeah. He's Benny Silver. He's like the IT expert who works for the police. Yeah. So he's a detective, but he's IT expert. But yeah, it's about 2 ex-soldiers who become hitmen because they haven't worked since they got back from the wherever they were. There's mentions of something happened in Kiev, and there's the 2 characters, Jay and Gal, and Jay's haunted by what happened in Kiev. That's Neil Maskell's character, and Smiley's like, it's fine, don't worry about it. It was our job. It's Yeah. But he basically gets them a job as hitmen that'll cover, like, it'll pay them out big time. Yep. And they listed like 3 people that they have to kill. And the first one's a priest, and he thanks them when they come to kill him. And then the second one is an archivist, and he thanks them as well. And that's when you're kind of like, all right, now there's a bit at the start where Smiley's character comes over with his new girlfriend to Maskell's character and his wife for dinner, because she's like, she works in recruitment, and she's like, chatting away. So they're just trying to get in contact, or just trying to build bridges, build the network.
Lest anyone kind of picture this as an action movie, it's
always not.
The tone of this movie is very jarring and slow. This movie is what I thought Eyes Wide Shut would be. Because Eyes Wide Shut to me was sold to me with this idea it's all about crazy, cult weirdness, like surrealism.
Yeah, it has elements like when it starts off, you're like, oh, they're doing a kind of almost that BBC style film of we're not going for high budget. We're trying to make it feel like you are a fly on the wall, but not reality TV style. Just you're a fly on the wall, and this is two people trying to cope with what happens after something goes wrong. They're in the service, but then like they're at the dinner and your man's girlfriend goes up to the thing and she like scratches a weird symbol into the back of the mirror and she sees a tissue that has blood on it because he cut himself shaving and she steals it and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and then you kind of forget about it and then it's like, oh, I've got this job and we have to kill like 3 people and to kill this like, and
he said the name of the title.
It kind of he said the thing, but it goes very off the rails in a good way. Like it's
I'm sorry, you're hang on a second, you're I might have to leave some of this in. Your video has paused at a very weird fucking moment, man.
Oh, your one paused as well, but it's caught up now.
Turn off and on your video there. I'll edit this bit out.
Yeah. Any better?
Yeah, we're back. We might have to do that a couple times. Scratch a weird symbol into the mirror.
Yeah, she cuts a weird symbol into the mirror and she sees a tissue that with his blood on it from when he cut himself shaving and she steals that and you're like, okay, this is all a bit fucking weird. But then you're kind of, in a way, you kind of forget about that because you're like the film does such a good way, like it's jarring in a good sense in that it's one of those films where when you're watching it, you're not completely sure what's going on at any point, but you never get the feeling that the director has lost his way.
Yes. It's like
he knows exactly where he's steering you. He knows exactly the narrative that he wants you to experience.
It's a good movie that can do that where you feel you're learning along with the main person or you're feeling you're losing the plot along with the main person. Jacob's Ladder is a good one for that as well. Yes, yeah. That was one I was kind of like, I don't think that's a cult film though. I think that was like it hasn't really got a big following now, but I remember during late 80s, early 90s, it was a film that you used to hear discussed a lot just because a lot of people were kind of like, oh, isn't this very interesting? It was very widely discussed. As I mentioned, all my topics do cover or relate to cults in a way. There is this weird cult thing that the guys are dealing with. So when they're going through the list and they're finding people, they're all thanking them. And the second guy they kill is an archivist. He has all these like fucked up videos, snuff films and all the rest, but he has a video file on the 2 characters. Yes. And it's marked with Kiev. And that freaks your man Jay out. And he wants out. He's like, no, fuck it. Because they find money at your man's place and they're like, this is enough to cover the cost of what we were going to get paid anyway. Let's just tell them, like, keep their money and we'll keep this and that'll be that. And they're told, no, you have to finish this or we're going to kill your families. And there's a whole cult thing towards the end, but I don't want to give it away for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's like, I know we do talk about spoilers in this, and obviously, we mentioned that, but the impact of that film, if you haven't seen it, it is something that's just, it's a psychological horror, but also a thriller, but also, it's a weird, it's just a great piece of filmmaking, and it was one of those ones that made it onto nearly every best of list of 2011, but most people I know have never seen it. A lot of them have never heard of it. I'd be similar to that. It's one where it's like when we talked about the movie The Game in a previous episode, it was worth spoiling it because it's a really interesting series of events. This to me isn't about the events or the ending or anything like that. It's really, really trying to sell people on like the tone and the it keeps you leaning forward. Every single scene in it, it is that kind of spiderweb thing of, all right, these things are related and this and this, and like how much of this is styled, how much of this is going to come good in the end, but that uncomfortable feeling is completely worth it. I love a movie that can do that. Oh yeah, and there's a couple of times where a character will come from area A, walk through a door into area B, you'll see a scene, then they'll go back out to area A and something strange has happened in area A and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And the main character is confused as well. But like I said, you never feel like the director has lost his way. He knows exactly what he's doing. It is, and part of why I don't want to say the ending is because you're meant to. The part of the experience of that film is knowing
is going along and being as confused in some ways as
Yeah.
Jay, the main character. And then when you go and watch it the second time, because like it is one of those films, like it can be at times it can be like, this is a bit hard to watch the second time just because of how it messes with you. But when you watch it the second time, the foreknowledge then changed the film entirely, but again in a good way. And it was one of those films that was written specifically for your man Neil Maskell. Did your man Benway was like, I have this film, I want you to be in it.
Yep.
And it's such a good performance. Like it's fantastic.
There's a whole slew of B movies where they don't quite know where they want to go, so they just keep throwing weirdness at the screen and try to just ramp it up. And then there's a kind of a very stylish thing, like something like In Bruges, where they set the tone very quickly with the weirdness, and then just ride it out. Whereas this is a completely different animal, where they're upping the ante and upping the ante and upping the ante, but it's not directionless. Everything feels right. Everything feels like you're getting more information despite the weirdness coming out.
It's that what you call it. It's coming back to your favorite thing of Silent Hill.
Yay!
But as I remember going to see Silent Hill with a friend of mine, and he came out and he was like, "That wasn't really a horror," and I was like, "It was definitely Silent Hill, though." And he was like, "I don't get you. I thought Silent Hill was a horror." I was like, "Silent Hill keeps you on edge. It puts you on edge, and then it keeps you there, and it never lets you relax by making you jump. Because when you jump, there's a moment of exhilaration afterwards where your body just flushes all the stress out of it, because you're like, the endorphin goes through and you're like, oh my god, how stupid was I, or oh my god, that was quite good. But it's like a reset. What Silent Hill does and what this film does is it puts you on that edge and holds you there.
Yep.
And just you keep going and keep going and keep going. There's a couple of other films that have managed to do it. There is one film that I saw, and it's called The Borderlands, and I did mention it briefly once. I think it's a 2015 film, and it's again an English film. It's set in kind of the English Wales borderlands, but it's just called The Borderlands, and it's like a found footage film. And again, that's another one of those things that just kind of, there is the odd jump scare just because of the nature of it, because it's meant to be found footage, so it's not meant to be just this constantly escalating situation of terror.
Yep.
But towards the end of it, you're constantly feeling more and more uneasy. And then when you realize what's happening at the end of Borderlands, there's a moment of, it's not a jump scare, it's just there's the horrific realization, and you're just kind of like, as a viewer, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And like, that kind of hits. And as I said, I only picked one film, and that was just something that, like, in that kind of vein, that's another film that fits into that. Like,
I think for my one, I approached this from a slightly different point of view, which isn't one that flew under the radar. I was going for more that kind of thing of these beloved films that were kind of flops in their time. And
everybody I know who's seen Kill List loves it.
Oh yes,
that's the thing.
But it's
like, that's kind of why I think it's a cool film in that.
But it's never going to have. It's never going to have a Rocky Horror Picture Show style viewing where people get up and act it out.
Okay, yeah.
Although I would go to see that. Speaking of which, I did go to see Rocky Horror last week. And I'd seen the movie before, but I'd not seen it as part of the stage show with all the accoutrements, with all the people acting it out and throwing toast and everything. And I went with my friend Dave, who used to do that. He used to be one of the actors. He used to like go up and do the whole thing. So he was mad excited. And Sinead was coming with us, and she was kind of messing with us because she'd never seen the movie. But she was like, yeah, it'll be fine. And she, like, just before she went in, he goes, I've seen all the other Rocky movies. I know what you're talking about. And we were like, both like spun on her going, what? And she's like, yeah, this will be fine. She walked in, those girls handing out cupcakes in like lingerie, and she was like, what's this? You know, how dare you bring...
Hang on. How has she gotten this far in life without being aware of the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Clearly she was, and she was just messing with us. But like watching her face, like the faux shock of just, oh my god, I'm outraged. How dare you? But that was great crack. I'll use The Big Lebowski to talk about cult movies, and then I'll do one properly.
Okay.
So, looking at all the cult movies that I really, really like, they kind of have these. Yeah, go for it. They kind of have common elements. I think a cult movie becomes a cult movie for something like it could have just an amazing soundtrack, and I think like The Big Lebowski with the Gypsy Kings doing Hotel California and the Tumbling Tumbleweeds, all this kind of eccentric stuff. And again, like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and all the Wes Anderson movies, they lean on their soundtrack really hard, and they get this kind of following. A cult movie to me is ridiculously quotable. So you got Big Lebowski, something like With Nail Eye or Spinal Tap. And this is me trying to say like something will come up with a following. It would be hard to quote Old Boy to someone or Kill List to someone or.
You don't have to, but you can still quote Old Boy. You just go, and the bit with the hammer, and everyone goes, oh, the bit with the hammer. That's it.
Comedy gold.
Like, I know. Like, there's friends of mine, both male and female, who hate like violence in films. They're just that's not what they're into. When they go to see a film, they want a good story. They think that like if you rely on violence, there are exceptions. Like I know these people who adore like The Raid because they're like, it's not fighting, it's ballet, and I'm like, yeah. Kind of. But they're like, Old Boy, I was like, look, there is one kind of particularly like grisly bit of violence, but I know you're not into that. And they're like, no, like it's worth it for the story. And they're like, okay. And afterwards, like that bit in the hallway though, and I'm like waiting for him to go, wasn't that? They're like, it's pretty fucking deadly.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But like for the kind of the Big Lebowski one, it's kind of weird and niche. It was fun kind of reading back over reviews of it today, reviews that came out at the time, and watching people try to put it into a genre, and I was like, well, it's an Americana, Western, it's a crime drama, and I'm sitting there going, I don't think it is, and it's like, it's a farce. I was like, that's probably the closest, but it's just like it's a mistaken identity farce.
Ted Johnson, Lebowski. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, anything that says that, I don't think you can describe as like a crime thriller or anything.
But one of the points I was trying to put together points that would make a cult classic, and it's got cosplay potential, and I was like, it's such a weird movie for it, but loads of people cosplay as the dude or Walter or something like that.
Justin did it.
Yeah, he did.
One of our friends Justin did it. He grew his hair for like 8 months just so he could go to New York Comic Con dressed as the dude
with a rug under his arm.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is how much I love the Big Lebowski. For my 21st birthday, I had a Big Lebowski viewing, and the point was like, we'll show up, we'll drink White Russians, we could wear dressing gowns, it'll be fine. But the problem is, with 20-year-olds, like, all the lads were there kind of going, that's great, everyone wore a dress gown. But all the girls that came did Bunny Lebowski, and I didn't expect them to. I thought they'd all do dressing gowns or do the Maud Lebowski kind of, I get it, like that kind of thing. It wasn't supposed to be a sexy party. And a bunch of the girls came in these weird little negligee things like that. And I was like, we're seriously just watching a movie, guys. White Russians, drinking pint after pint of milk is not a sexy time.
How sexy do you feel while bloated on dairy? Oh.
But it was good fun.
Yeah, I get what you mean by that style of cult. The ones I was looking at were more kind of ones that were like critically lauded, or no, not necessarily critically lauded, but more kind of. There's the people who were aware of it are very impressed by it, but the majority of people just aren't aware of it.
I think we've both picked up on something, because the other side of the cult classic is the so bad it's good kind of thing, and that's like Repo Man in the Room and things like that. Although Repo Man was quite good, or even They Live, which has like a 10-minute fight scene in the middle of it. And
yes,
I know afterwards someone told me John Carpenter was like, he was really into wrestling, and I was like, oh, it's a wrestling scene, because that 10-minute fight scene is fucking excruciating.
Yes. And it's it's Roddy Piper, so
yeah. I think the common element, whether it's so bad it's good, or whether it's something as nearly beautiful as Kill List, or something as I think just perfectly made as The Big Lebowski, there's something where they're pushing some boundary, and it's often just censorship. And like, what can they emotionally get you to feel that you've never felt before? Like in The Big Lebowski, they say fuck 260 times in a 120-minute film. That is a ridiculous amount, but it's
John Goodman putting in work.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I love movies that just are like, we're not a beloved Hollywood movie. We're just going to curse constantly, or we're going to show weird stuff as much as we possibly can.
One thing I found with cult movies is like, for me, it's more a case of, this is not something that's well publicized. It's not something that just like, for whatever reason, for whatever confluence events, other films in the cinema, other media that's on release, events that are happening in the world, not a lot of people go and see it. But when you go and see it and you come out of it, people go, did you like it? And you go, yeah. And you go, have you any problems with it? And you go, no. You can recognize, yes, the dialogue was shit, or yes, the costume design was shit, but it didn't matter. The film itself, it's a self-contained package. They knew what they were setting out to do something, and whether they managed to do it or not, they've created something that you cannot picture it with anything changed.
Yes.
That to me is a big thing in cult film, where it's like I couldn't picture The Big Lebowski with any of the characters changed, no matter how big or how small.
Yep.
With any different actor playing any of them, I can't get it in my head. Like, I couldn't go and like with Kill List again. I couldn't picture anyone playing any of the roles differently.
Yep.
Or I just, it doesn't work. Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's nothing about that I would change, even though like some of the sets look shit.
Yep.
But it's fine. It's all part of it. That film wouldn't be as entertaining. If they perfected that little bit of, you know what I mean? We could polish this, but by polishing it, we're going to make it worse. And it's not always the case, but that is a thing that I've noticed with cult films, that it's like I'll go and watch them, I'll be like, obviously one of the big ones for me as well, I think it is kind of a cult film still, is Brick, and it is like my favorite film of all time. But I didn't mention it because I mentioned it before. But it's that thing of like, I can even, every time I watch it, I can see continuity errors, and I can see slight different. That there's something wrong there, or that could have been done a bit wrong. But there's nothing I would change about that film. And it's been like that since I first watched it.
Yep. There's so many ones like Rocky Horror, or even like the Evil Dead series, where I can see where they've had to cut a corner, or I can see where they've had to, like, that costume. There's people wearing costumes where I can see that they went into a shop and bought very cheap things, or they went and did that. But I wouldn't change it. I was like, they had to work to those restraints, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. Like, it's, I think all those things contribute. I mean, there's probably, if we really sat down and thought about it, there would be subgenres within cult, in terms of like something like Kill List, which is a cult film, just like I said, because not a lot of people are familiar with it, but people who have seen it all adore. Or cult films like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which everybody's heard of it, and it's one of those things that either people adore or people don't care about.
I'll give a shout out to one more, which is a movie I saw and I loved. And it's the one that when I went back and looked at it ages later, I found out there was a cult following, and I was just so happy that there was that following. And like, I'd seen it and liked it completely separately, which is In the Mouth of Madness, which is a 1994 John Carpenter film starring Sam Neill. And it is peak John Carpenter, peak Stephen King style. Like, it's nothing to do with Stephen King. It's technically a Lovecraftian kind of horror, psychological horror.
It's kind of the only one as well. It's the only really official one. That can be directly, the only film that can be directly linked to the Cthulhu mythos, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, not including all of the ones that the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society make.
No, fuck those. I mean, look, I adore the Cthulhu mythos.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like, in terms of like, I mean,
yeah, people always try to put their own spin.
The fact that Del Toro's never going to make it,
yeah.
I'm devastated by that. But at the same time, it's in every little bit of Hellboy, you can see the influences both through the Hellboy comics and his own love of Cthulhu. Like, but as far as I'm aware, In the Mouth of Madness is the only one that's directly linked to the Cthulhu mythos. Because all the others will skirt around it or will mention the Outsiders or the Outsiders, but they'll never specifically name one of them. Yeah. I think it's Nyarlathotep is mentioned in, or Innsbruck, or where something is mentioned that specifically relates to.
So anytime they quote any of his work, it is always direct quotes from Lovecraft as well. So they're basically saying that, I think what they're doing is, if Lovecraft was alive and was Stephen King today, that's the movie we're making.
Yeah, it was something like that. I know there was like direct references though.
It as a Lovecraft fan, it's so fun to watch, because as he runs around, it's like a dude running from, he's sent out to find this author, and he's insane, and every scene in it feels like someone trying to outdo each other at a campfire story, and they're all telling snippets from it. So like, there's a bit where he goes to a hotel and there's trees in the conservatory, and you see them move slightly, and that's a reference to one of Lovecraft's stories about the plants that come to life in some hotel. And there's all these little things, and if you don't know Lovecraft, it's just someone trying to drive this person insane. Every new scene starts normal and just gets weirder. But if you know them, you know what the references are. But there's a trope that I love, which is that the author is writing his own story, that he's trapped in his own book, that like
It's a form of unreliable narrator, but it's almost
yeah.
it's unreliable Mary Sue. No, hang on.
Unreliable author insert, or like,
Yeah, Mary Sue.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like in Stranger Than Fiction, where Will Ferrell's character hears his writer and realizes that he's been written about, and realizes he's a character in a book. It's that trope, but he starts realizing that he is the character in his own book, and he is also the author, and is driven insane. And like they do that in Alan Wake as well, which is hilarious. But I love that because it's such a stupid mindfuck, and it like the first time I saw it, it was played out. I was like, okay, done with that.
This is new, but I'm already tired.
Yeah, that I really feel like I wrote that when I was 15 or something. It was like writing myself into the story because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
But they do it so well, and it's got like it's kind of pacey and dreamlike, which is great for horror, those kind of horror movies. It's got like industrial synth music and stuff like that. Everything in it is somebody.
It's a Carpenter film, of course.
Yeah,
industrial synth music,
and they really lean into the kind of cocaine-y feel of everything that's a bit Stephen King-y and Carpenter and everything. It's nice. But that's the one I want. And Sam Neill is a joy in it. That I think we've kind of hit on a point there of you need a main actor that you can point a camera at, and with nothing else going on the screen, they need to carry it. And it's not like Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead. Like I could just watch that man. Yeah. Jeff Bridges was the dude. The guys from Kill List. There's scenes where they're eating dinner and you're tense and you don't know why, because the character, like the guys are making that happen.
The very first dinner in Kill List, where Gal brings his new girlfriend over, and the four of them are sitting there, and it's like, this is uncomfortable to watch. But because because nothing seems out of the ordinary, it's just uncomfortable to watch because it seems like something we've all sat through. It's In
The Mouth of Madness as well, they just let Sam Neill do his New Zealand accent. That's it. If you like Event Horizon, watch this. It's that Sam Neill seems to like the Lovecraftian thing and just seems to lean into it. But
like something where he can have a laugh, where he can enjoy himself, and that's brilliant. Like, I mean, even if you've seen A Hunt for the Wilder People and all the rest, like he is just. He's gotten to the point where he's like, I give zero fucks. I have money in the bank and the house is paid off. I can do what I want, and he just picks films that seem to interest him, which is good.
I
think he's an actor.
The opening scene is hilarious, where he's been dragged into a mental institution, and I'm sure I've done this line before, but I love the bit where the two orderlies are trying to bundle him into the room, and he's just kicking and punching, and he eventually clocks one of them right in the dick. And then like they throw him in, lock the door, and he runs to the little window and puts his face out and goes, "All right, I'm sorry about your balls. It was a lucky shot." As the orderlies walked down the hall, it was like such a nice little moment to prove he is a sane man. That like, as much as you just saw all the kicking and screaming a second ago, that was a nice little moment.
It's also like it's one of those things. It's like I hate when films and games, particularly games, don't have stuff like that. Because like TV does it more often, because it's almost like TV in some ways doesn't think of itself as the serious medium. Because games are trying so hard to be recognized as serious art and serious entertainment mediums, and film, it's kind of like, well, we're the institution, we have to, Whereas those little, almost off the cuff moments that are a half a second, just add so much to character depth.
The bit in Kill List is when List is where the two guys start fighting, and then have a laugh like they're friends. They genuinely are friends. They're assassins in this movie together, hitmen, but they are friends. They were in the army together. They beat the shit out of each other and have a laugh about it.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's what was The Exorcist 3? Probably one of the best horror films of all time, in my opinion.
Right.
And for anyone who all our talk of horror wants to suddenly start watching them, watch The Exorcist 1 if you haven't already seen it. I'd be surprised if you haven't. You might not have. Watch The Exorcist 1. The Exorcist 2 does not exist. And then go watch The Exorcist 3. Because The Exorcist 3 is written and directed by William Peter Blatty, who wrote The Exorcist, but he was meant to be The Exorcist 2, but he'd already signed up to do something else. So they got someone else to do Exorcist 2, which is why it's a pile of shit. But The Exorcist 3, the main character in it and his name escapes me right now. I'm not going to look him. But the main character in it is a cop. His friend is a priest. The way they talk to each other, they go and see It's a Wonderful Life together, I think it is. And the way they talk to each other and the offhand scathing remarks they make to each other that don't bother either of them is so natural a portrayal of friendship. And it's such a regular human thing to do that I'm like, that's great. But if that wasn't in the film, like how they would be affected later and how their friendship is affected later, I don't think I'd care as much.
Yeah.
But a lot of filmmakers, they look at it and go, "Oh, it's not needed. Keep it, strip it down. Keep it." It's like they look at it and there's a difference between like cutting the fluff out of a film because it's just padding for no reason, and taking a good character development that seems inconsequential but will let you know so much about the character in such a very short space of time. And I think that's where like it's very rare, and I want to see more of it. I mean, it's like one thing we were talking about on one of the Facebook groups. I mean, it's a game development Facebook group, and we were talking about it a while back. It was like, do you like humor in your RPG games, in your fantasy RPG games and stuff like that? And I'm like, yeah, because if you don't have it, it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
Gallows humor is probably one of the oldest forms of humor. And, you know, in RPG games, you're usually facing the end of the world. And if one of your characters isn't doing a game over man or fucking cracking a joke, you're like, this just doesn't feel natural. Like, if every character is, you know, super serious, po-faced, and we have a job to do, it's like, I don't give a shit anymore because you're all boring.
Yeah.
If someone's being smart arse, if someone's nervous, if someone's cracking a joke, if someone's just trying to, even if a character just breaks down crying for 2 minutes, it's like, I'm all right, I just need to get out of my system. You're like, these characters immediately feel more identifiable and I'm more invested in the story. And I'm hoping, like, games seem to have dropped that lately in their effort to try and be recognized as an art medium.
Yep.
I think they need to have that little bit of humor put back in a lot of cases. So that's just me, though.
Yeah, I think if you're writing this stuff, if you've spent that much time with the characters while writing them, you're just going to find humor that's in character for them. I just said don't shy away from it. Like, don't try to insert it. But if you're spending a year writing something and there's a character you think would say something funny somewhere, go for it.
Yeah, and in Dystropia bingo fashion, we've already mentioned Silent Hill, so I'm going to mention Gears of War.
Yeah.
There's a moment in, I think it's Gears of War 2, where it's like maybe 20 minutes before, sorry, it's about 10 minutes after you've seen one of the main characters in the series, or one of the main supporting characters. He's not one of the core 4 characters, but he's one of the supporting characters. Get killed for all you know. Like, you basically have to leave as there's a fight going on. And you're like, your character wasn't able to help him. And you're like, oh, that was kind of shit. And about 10 minutes before, you find Dom's deformed, tortured wife.
Yeah, I remember
there's
that
a
scene.
moment where they're walking up. There's a bit where they're walking along underground, and one of the guys is like, it's like, oh, so this is where the locusts live. And one of the guys is like, I wonder what they eat. And just out of nowhere, like the main character Marcus Phoenix is like, they can eat shit and die for all I care. And I'm like, great. It's just like, giant fridge men aside, that's actually like a very natural line. Yeah. For a soldier to just drop and be just kind of like, yeah, whatever, I don't give a shit. Why are you asking this question? Who gives a shit? And it's great. It's just a nice little line. And you know, like when at least someone came up and went, we put that line in there, and someone kind of went, yeah, we're not trying to take ourselves seriously. But that makes it stand out as that little bit better writing than the other game that went, oh my God, this is horrific. And they went, yeah, we better be on our best. We better be alert. And never made a joke. Yeah. And you tried to break the tension, and it's like, yeah, it just doesn't. I think it's probably the main problem in game writing nowadays. Is that there's almost an aversion to that sense of humor because they're trying to be recognized as good writing, and that aversion is weakening the writing.
I always like to see that weird moment where the serious version of something comes out, and then the reskins do the piss take. So like with Doom and Quake coming out, then they had Redneck Rampage and Blood, which was a fantastic game, and Duke Nukem, and they were just the kind of silly versions of it. I'd love to see that happen with more. Like, the problem is people don't back kind of comedy games. They want to do, if they're doing horror, they have to do relentless horror.
Yeah, but having the odd line it's that human element, as I said, like, just makes the writing feel that bit more natural. That's just me though.
There's in Silent Hill 2 the joke with Pyramid Head. He's like, "You're not friends with that red pyramid thing, are you?" And they just look at each other for a minute, and they both shake their heads like they both realize the weirdness of what he's just asked. He's like, "Yeah, okay." It just
It's a valid question. You don't know what the fuck is going on in Silent Hill, like.
Cool.
So,
do you want me to go first for the TV shows one?
sure.
Unless
Unless you picked what I've picked.
No, I have not. So it's Utopia. No, it is. I realize that we keep doing horror as all this, so I picked Eurotrash.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's a very good shout as a cult. Yeah.
Growing up in Ireland, we had Channel 4, it was a British TV channel, and they used to put on. They were pretty much the guys who fed me all my old kind of cult classic movies and punk TV shows and porn, and yeah, I mean, like late night Channel 4 was just them kind of basically saying, what slightly shocking thing can we put on screen to get people
anime
to watch?
as well. They used to do anime seasons where every Saturday night at 1 o'clock they put on an anime film.
Really?
And they used to set the thing to record them.
Yeah.
Akira, Pat Labor 1 and 2, Rojin Z, they were all like on a. There was a series that ran, I think it was like 4 summers in a row, and I recorded and watched nearly all of them. Like,
I'm pretty sure I used to just set the thing to start recording at 1 a.m. on random nights on Channel 4, like Friday night and Saturday night, and then had like a 3-hour long record cassette, and then just fast forward through it again to see if there's anything interesting. And like fast forward, naked lady on a beach. Oh, back up, and then start watching the start of whatever that show was, and it's like some French thing with subtitles. I'm watching it, going, oh no, I don't know what this is. And there's 20 minutes until the lady on the beach scene. Am I really going to watch this? I guess I am. Okay, let's see. They had another show which I'll talk about in a minute, which is the one that I'm not sure anyone's ever heard of it, and I thought I dreamt it until I checked it again. But for Eurotrash. It was, I think you call it a magazine format show, where you're always cutting away to segments and bits, and it had
this article.
It had Anton Duquesne as the main dude, Antoine.
Mm-hmm.
I just know him as Antoine. I didn't even know he had a last name until I looked it up for this. And he was just proper classic sleazy French guy, and he's in the most kitschy ever. Kind of, they used to film the scenes in miniature and then put him into them, so it looked like he was in a dollhouse, so they could put in all the weird kitschy bullshit in the background.
Yeah, I think he probably had the most used eyebrows in TV, because every time like it'd always be like the whole. Like, it was constant suggestive eyebrows. Like.
And it ran from 1993 to 2007. And I remember there was the one I would stay up late to watch, and if your parents came in and you flicked over the channel, they kind of knew you were watching something. They'd go through and find Eurotrash and go, "You're not watching that, are you?" But it was
everyone wanted that what you call it? Everyone wanted that TV remote that had the button to just go to the last thing.
Yeah.
So you could be on like channel 6 and channel 2, and you're like, no, I obviously just went up and down, and it's the Late Show. I don't know what you're talking about.
But of course. It was the weirdest show ever to watch for just the promise of maybe seeing a nipple at some point. And I will say, I remember it being a really trashy, cheap, terrible show. I've just looked it up. The budget was astronomical to make it look that cheap. It is the Dolly Parton quote of "it costs a lot of money to look this cheap." They were throwing all the money they could at it to make it look as sticky or kitschy and like horrible as possible. And it worked so well. And some of the segments I remember is like a dude who painted pictures with his dick. And it would be...
the easiest way to describe this TV show is it's the inside of John Walter's head.
Yes, very much. It is absolutely that. Every segment, they would do basically 3 segments for a 30-minute episode. And the last segment always had boobs in it. So you had to watch the first 2 to get to it. And they'd always cut back to Antoine doing skits and bits. That I was the one I think that made Lola Ferrari famous as well.
Yeah.
The lady with the like quadruple G boobs, who I'm pretty sure died because of it, like because of complications with.
Yeah, but I was either that or drugs.
And you would sit up watching this thing, and like the first segment would be about a guy who collects cow dung and frisbees them, and you're like, all right, that was weird. And the next segment was about a guy who would wear a mask and paint pictures with his dick, and like it would be. They were very good at not showing hugely explicit things, so they wouldn't show his dick, but they would show him in front of a paint pot squatting and dipping, kind of, and then he would show him next to a canvas, and then he would show him turn around and the canvas would have smears all over it, and you're like, okay, that's like they did everything as much as wink wink nudge nudge as you could when there's a guy painting a picture with his dick. And then the third segment would be about a nudist beach, and you'd have boobs finally, and you're like, finally, we got there.
Sorry, just looking up, she had 36 triple M.
Triple M, that's...
And the breast implants themselves were reputed to be designed by an engineer who was involved in the design of the Boeing 747.
Wow.
She died of suicide.
Oh, did she? Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the episode where they did a serious
Tribute.
moment to camera as tribute to her. I think Antoine did it for like, it was 15 or seasons or something. He did it for the first 10. And then Jean-Paul Gaultier took over.
No, he was. There's a point where both of them were on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember not watching it for years and coming back, and Jean-Paul Gaultier is in a kilt and his hair bleach blonde, doing his best Antoine impression. Is very much the one that like we're now completely past that point in culture where people watch stuff and then go into work or go into office or go into school or go into college the next day and talk about what they've watched.
Yeah.
Because now everything's available immediately. But it was the one where like, if you could get someone to admit they were watching Eurotrash, you'd have the best conversations about it. You're like, did you see the one with the, like, it'll be a nudist farm, but for animals? Like, it's always something stupid. I'm pretty sure I've just found an article saying it's coming back. That's the weirdest thing. Oh, there's photos of both of them. It's got such weird stuff in it.
They both presented the whole thing apparently.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, apparently.
Anyways. There are entire boards.ie conversations of people remembering and just kind of badly remembering all of the weird segments that are on it. Oh, like literally one of the comments. Having a fap with sound only barely audible on the telly while sitting in the sitting room with the door open, listening out for someone to walk in. That's how you learn multitasking. So that was kind of my main one. I did love Eurotrash, and I'm sure like if I was living I've never lived with other people, I'm sure it'd be the kind of thing you just leave on in the background and have people commenting on it, because you can't just watch it, you have to watch it and then talk to someone about how weird it was. And that's I think what they were trying to make.
Yeah, I think it was more designed for like, you know, like something for 5 or 6 people to sit around and just mock.
Yes, that's very much
and
it.
Just be like, what in the ever-loving shite is this?
Yeah. The other one I want to talk about, and I remember watching this. I remember saying this to someone ages ago, and then the look of realization on their face. It's like proper recovered memory job. There was a TV show on Channel 4 called Bits, and it was 3 ladies reviewing video games, and it was on at like midnight on a Thursday, and I'd have to stay up to watch it. It was one of these ones I accidentally videoed, and it had a very Adam and Paul vibe. It was like these 3 girls, again, doing comedy skits, doing little bits and pieces. Like it would often cut back to them, and they were halfway through reenacting the alien chestburster scene, and then they'd all start talking about a new game on the N64. Or like if they wanted to talk about time splitters, one of the girls would be in the background trying to do the splits while balancing a giant clock, just to have something weird going on.
Okay.
But it was just 3 black-haired girls who clearly played video games, and sometimes they would tour around arcades and just beat people at video games. And every single one of the girls was like black spiky-haired girl or black pigtails girl, and they'd be wearing like a crop belly top with like the 18s symbol on it, or like Wipeout or something, and like ridiculously baggy cargo pants. Every single one of them looked like they were the punk one from a girl band.
So hang on, this ran for 5 seasons.
All right. And one of the girls in it, Emily Booth, like none of the girls I don't think has gone on to do anything particularly of note, but like I looked at her IMDb today, and everything she has on it is vampy girl in this horror movie or goth girl in this horror movie. I think her most recent thing was in the Little Don't segment from Grindhouse. That was it Edgar Wright?
No,
did?
she's done like 2 or 3 things since.
Is she?
She was in Event Horizon. She was on.
Was she?
She's one of the crew on the Monitor
That's brilliant.
from the original crew.
She honestly, she really just seems to like being covered in blood, because going back to her IMDb, she's got all these roles where you're like, kind of, I don't know why you would take that role, except to be on a set where people were doing like weird creature effects. But
Okay.
it is. I'll dig up some video of it, but it is absolutely the one that, like, I remember watching it like late night Channel 4, kind of watching it going, oh, this is interesting. But them being super knowledgeable and super like ridiculously into it. And I was like, I really thought this was just like the reason they gave it to 3 girls was to make like titillate, that kind of thing. You're watching it going, these girls are genuinely funny. It was like Smack the Pony. Like they were clearly friends who had the same sense of humor, and every time they did a sketch, they were all in. But no, it was the one that every so often I'll say it to people, and somebody's face will just glaze over for a second and go, oh my fucking God, I remember that.
Or do you? This is a hallucination.
I'll get, and again, Channel 4 turned me on to things like The League of Gentlemen and a couple other really weird things that I think have gone down in history as just cult classics, as ones that have that small following that are absolutely in love with it. I think the American version would be something like Arrested Development, where there's that thing that just you can.
I don't know if Arrested Development. Again, I don't know if it's cult because so many people know it.
I always think a cult classic is one that just wasn't big at the time and seems to have picked up after.
I remember though when it being on and people looking forward to new seasons, it was like Arrested Development and like Curb Your Enthusiasm. It was one of those ones that everyone was looking forward to. Like,
I guess that,
maybe. I mean, it's possible.
I mean, then maybe they're successful but an acquired taste.
Yeah.
But
I think it's different with TV shows, because I think it's that whole thing of if a TV show is with cult TV shows, just the whole, because of the way cancellations work and stuff, it's very rare for something to last, you know what I mean? So it's not like, oh, I've watched all 6 seasons of it.
Yeah.
But no one's ever heard of it. It's like, there's no way to get 6 seasons. You get 1, maybe 2.
I always think the sign of a good cult classic is that it's off the air, but you still see it popping up in other TV shows and movies and stuff like that. Like you see 2 actors from something being put together in something else, because they're like, hey, it's from that thing. It's from Firefly. It's from Arrested Development. It's from The League of Gentlemen. Even in Psychoville and Inside Number 9, they kept harking back to their old, the guys who do that, the League of Gentlemen. They do hark back to their old TV shows, and then other TV shows
Sean Connery.
Go on. Oh yes, of course.
Sean
Sean Connery, yes, of course. The movie that ended his career.
Oh my God, that fucking film.
Yeah. Cool. What was your TV show?
Well, yeah, it's Utopia. Was
What?
The one I picked up. No, I did have another one. It was actually one that I was just, I was toss of a coin, and it was more kind of. I could mention the other one. I'll cover both of them. Fuck it. So Utopia was the main one. Again, Neil Maskell's in it. Adil Akhtar. He's if you've seen the 2015 version of Pan, he's going to play Shmi. He's also one of the guys in Four Lions, which is one of my favorite comedies of the last 10 years. Stephen Ray's in it. Michael Smiley shows up in it. I can never remember his name. He's one of those triple barrel names. He's in the original Misfits. He's in it as well as one of the characters from that. But basically, it's about people who are fans of a cult comic.
Right.
And the comic it was called the Utopia Manuscripts, and it was written, and the guy who wrote it then went insane and was put into an insane asylum. But it turns out that when you actually look at the publication dates of the comics predict every major terrorist attack and event before they happened of the previous 30 years. And then word gets out that there is a second manuscript that does the next 30 years. And so all the fans are like, these cool fans are like, oh, we got to get a copy. There's a sequel. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. You know, and it's like, I'd love to try the sequel. I'd love to read it. and they all communicate through this message board, and someone manages to get a copy of it, and from then you find out that there's this group called the Network who are trying to track down a copy of the manuscript as well. And they go after the group who have found a copy of the manuscript, because it basically uncovers a massive plot by the government. Again, it's something I don't want to give away because I think I'm unusually avoiding spoilers, because I think in this episode, just because I think these two things work too well, like both in
I think
Killiston and this.
Anything we've spoiled in the past can still be enjoyed post spoilers. I think this
is more stuff is not. I think you lose part of it. Again, it's one of those things that you want to then go back and watch it again after the first time with the foreknowledge and appreciate. Oh, okay, so that's why he says that at that point in the film. That's why he says that at that episode. Or
I have to say, I have to apologize to the TV show because I thought they did a really stupid joke, and the main character, or one of the characters, is called Jacqueline Hyde. But that's not her name, it's Jacqueline something else, and I'm the fucking idiot who came up with that stupid joke.
It's not Jacqueline either, it's Jessica.
Is it Jessica? Oh god.
Yeah, it's the opening. So the opening of the first episode is Neil Maskell's character, and
is it Jessica Hyde then?
Yeah. So it's Arby, who is played by Neil Maskell, and another guy, Lee, who's the two of them are like, essentially they're the foot soldiers for the Network.
Sorry, it's the other way around. So her name is Jessica Hyde, and I keep in my mind calling her Jacqueline Hyde because I think that's funny. And I thought that the TV show had done a stupid joke, and I was like telling people about that. It turns out I made a stupid joke and was attributing it completely incorrectly.
Anyway, but yeah, so the opening of it is it's a comic book shop, and they're about to close, and the two of them walk in and they pull the shutters down behind them. And your man walks up, Neil Maskell walks up to the guy behind the counter, and he's like, the other guy leaves, like, your man, like, Arby's just staring right at the guy. And the other guy's like, someone came in looking for a Utopia, and he's like, oh, yeah. And he goes through, like, the Rolodex, and he pulls out the guy's name. He's like, that's all I have. And then your man Arby just starts going, where's Jessica Hyde? And I was like, I don't know who that is. He's like, where is Jessica Hyde? And he just keeps asking it in this really kind of, like, he's disconnected. And then there's an incredibly brutal opening where they basically kill everyone in there and make it look like a gas explosion. And there's even a point where, like, he beats down like three of them, fully grown men, and they go to leave, and then one of them notices a kid, and he sits down and he has these little chocolate covered raisins, and he kind of shakes it at the kid, and he's like, he just turns to him and he's like, get the gas. And you're like, oh Jesus, well then, this is going to be a fun ride. Yep. It doesn't flinch away from anything, which is something I always appreciate in TV series. If you're going for this kind of short form, like each season's only 6 episodes, there's 2 seasons of it. If you're going for this kind of short form, very focused story arc, I don't think you can skip any details. You need to have people fully immersed. And if you're going to always flinch away from stuff, like if you want people to be 100%, oh, they're the bad guys, you need to show them being bad.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just have gradually build up over time by, oh, we're going to keep dropping, oh, like someone walks in and goes, did you hear such and such is dead? You can't do that. You have to just show it, and then everyone kind of goes, oh God, I fucking hate that guy. What Utopia manages to do, though, without me giving anything away, it was the only series I've ever watched, or the only game, series, film, book, anything, any piece of media that I've consumed, where by the end of the first chapter or the first episode, I've been like, okay, I know who the good guys are, I know who the bad guys are, fuck the bad guys, let's go good guys. And by the end of the first book, series, whatever, I'm like, I now am kind of rooting for the bad guys because they actually kind of have a better reason for what they're doing. This is weird. And the fact that a show manages to do that in 6 episodes is, like, I go, like, you go through the first 5 episodes, you're like, man, these network guys are actually bastards, they're pricks, I hate them.
Yep. And
then you get to that last episode and you're like, oh, I see. Oh, so they're not actually oh God. I feel like shit. Oh, wow. And it's just such an impressive feat of storytelling.
Mm.
There's so many odd shots in the series. There's a lot of long shots. There's a lot of lingering shots. There's a lot of shots where it doesn't focus on the characters. It'll focus on a room, and the characters will move about, but the camera doesn't bother following them.
Yeah.
Which is something I like. I feel can kind of make it more immersive if done right. It's a very kind of odd soundtrack. Music is very almost children's TV soundtrack in a weird way.
I think
for a lot of it,
the people who were making it got what they were doing very quickly, and everybody added to it. And from the soundtrack point of view, they absolutely got that. They kind of wanted something that no one thing is unnerving, but taken together it's unnerving. And the title cards and all the advertising for it was yellow and blue, and all these striking colors that if you pointed at it and went, those are fine colors, like they absolutely good, like that. Those particular things, it's like IKEA, it's fine, there's nothing, those colors work. But everything taken together just really starts unnerving you, and you're like watching it going, I don't know why that bright yellow screen really gets to me today.
Yeah. And there's some pretty messed up stuff that happens in it. Like there's a scene of torture in it that without, like I said, they don't flinch away from the torture, but they don't directly point the camera at what's happening. It's like it's almost looking over someone's shoulder, and they're slightly obscuring what they're doing. But it was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen on TV. But at the same time, I was kind of, it's all pulling me into the story more.
Now you see why I did. Now you see why I did Eurotrash in the middle to really give us a trashy sorbet.
Well, that's the thing. Like the only other kind of one I can consider a cult TV series that I'd recommend, and I'm just going to mention it in passing, is Carnival.
Oh yeah.
And the HBO series. So it was they wanted to cancel it after due to ratings. It would have been cancelled after the first season, but they let them finish the second season because it was like nearly every HBO series is designed to be done in 6 seasons. And the guy had written it so each 2 seasons was a book. So after the end of the second season, it was meant to jump 10 years anyway, or 11 years, sorry. So they were like, we can just do those 2 and then leave them. It's got Clancy Brown, who I adore, and it's got God, what was his name? Fuck, this is gonna annoy me now.
I'm pretty sure we covered this in a earlier episode, so I'll go back and watch that one.
Nick Stahl, that's the one. So Nick Stahl's in it. Clancy Brown. Then you have Michael J. Anderson, who's he is the little person from Twin Peaks.
Yep.
And then like there's maybe 20 or 30, like Clea Duvall's in it, who is in she's in CSI for like 7 or 8 seasons.
This is another one that I think I'm still seeing the pedigree of it in TV shows and stuff now. Every so often something will happen, like they put those actors in, or they use this person, or they're hinting at something here because somebody really liked Carnival.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those ones that what their names always do it, like particularly HBO. Even if a series doesn't work as well as they wanted to, they will still, if an actor does well, you'll see them used over and over again. It's like the whole thing of there's so much overlap between The Wire and Oz, and there's so much overlap between The Wire and Goodfellas, and between Carnival and I think The Wire. Like there's loads of overlap between them, but it's a very good, very well done series set during the Dust Bowl. It's about a carnival traveling around the Deep South, and kind of goes over into California and that, and it's about the coming apocalypse. And there's a preacher, and then there's an ex-con who's escaped, who broke off a chain gang, and all the way through the 2 seasons, they are moving towards a confrontation. They are gradually moving towards each other, and something horrendous is going to happen when they do. And it's one of those series that when you watch it for the first like 4 or 5 episodes, you're like, this is good. And there's implications of supernatural elements, and you're like, yeah, but that could just be the characters are hallucinating, or it's superstition, or whatever. And then there's 1 or 2 moments where you're like, okay, that's outright supernatural, but that just could be just this one particular character.
That always bothers me when that comes in too late, where like you've established so much, and I feel like you're 2/3 of the way into the story, and then they start bringing the supernatural, and I'm like, you're a little bit late on this one.
No, like I think one of the characters can heal people by laying hands on them, but if he does, something else nearby will die. He can only transfer life energy. He can't actually replenish life energy. So there's a scene in it where there's a girl who's basically been paralyzed from the waist down, and she's on one of those kind of little red carts that her brother pulls her around on because 30s don't have wheelchairs and all that. She's on a farm, and he lays hands on her to heal her. And as he's doing it, you see in like a ripple from every plant in every plant in the crop of what her family has planted is withering and dying. And she gets up and she said,
it's a very poignant moment where the train is pulling out the train, but the carnival caravan pulls away, and she's running after him to wave, and she can run like she's on her feet. She's still a little unsteady, but still there are crops dying. Like you can still see them graying and turning brown, and you're like, she's walking, but their entire livelihood is dead. And in that one scene you can see, all right, like he's not just benevolent doing good things. Like that is the give and take of that is we're in the Dust Bowl. Like that, a crop failure is fucking significant.
Yes, but like there's like he's the only one that's it's overt for the first 4 or 5 episodes. Then there's a specific thing, the thing that happens in one episode where they go to a town that's said to be haunted, and there's a whole thing: if someone dies there, they never leave. And then one of the characters gets killed, a female character. And all I did was a mining town, and there was a collapse in the mine, and everybody was killed. But at night, all the miners are there. They come to the carnival, and they're all acting a little off. But they're actually, it's hinted heavily that these are all the ghosts of this. One of the young girls gets killed. She's like 20 or 21. She gets killed, and there's a big uproar. And they try and find people to basically, enact mob justice. They can't find anyone because all the ghosts have disappeared. But it's more like, they're hiding in the mines. We don't know where they are. And like, let's just get the hell out of here. And as the thing is rolling out, Samson, Michael J. Anderson's character, he's walking out of the town, and he looks over at one of the windows, and he sees her standing in the window, and she's just wearing like a shift, like a nightgown thing, and one of the miners comes up behind her and puts his arm around her throat and pulls her back from the window. She starts crying, and your man Samson nearly breaks down crying. And that's the moment in the series where it's kind of, oh fuck, okay, right, this is full on, and we are going full supernatural, but also like in a way to deliver it, because like you said, like, yeah, okay, you've seen the crop die, but at the same time it was like, that person can now walk. Yep. But they're like, yeah, but here's the horrific side of things. Yeah. And when they show it, it's a very kind of, right, oh, okay. I think the reason why it didn't do well, like, I mean, it's very well written, it's very beautifully shot, for a series where the majority of what they're shooting, they're just on dust and dirt. They still manage to have bright, vibrant, very well crafted shots, and it's a great series. But I think just why it didn't do well is because it was supernatural, and they don't really tell you. So I think people were watching it and kind of going, and like it builds the story up for so long that I think it puts people off. I think it's one of those things that if they had just it would be perfect for Netflix. It would be perfect for when you're able to just binge watch an entire season in one go. If they went back and did the rest of it now, I think it would be huge, because they could just go, there's Carnival season 3 in one day, 10 episodes, and people are able to watch it, and it's a single story, and they're like, this is amazing. Yep. Because like if you go back and you watch seasons 1 and 2 now, watching an episode at a time, you can do it, but like, I know most people I know who watched it now, like, will sit down and just watch the whole thing in one go and go, that's an incredible story. And it's just very well crafted. Like, I think that's how the story had to be told. Whereas something like it unfortunately didn't grab you by the balls first episode, like something like Lost or something did, which has a ridiculous cult following, or at least did. I think people are kind of over at this stage.
But I think Carnival, it's every episode builds on the last episode. That nearly every episode is the best one. Like you're watching it in the second episode, you're like, oh my god, that's what's happening. Third episode, like it's drawing you in and drawing you in.
Yeah. I like, see, for me, it's like when he had that type of first episode where it's like a slow burn, but you're like that bit of she can walk now, okay, but stuff is dying around her. Okay, I'm interested. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
And it was enough. And then like that was the show that made me such a fan of Clancy Brown, because he's just brilliant at it.
Yeah, he really
he's
is.
just so watchable, and he has such a presence. I mean, like that voice is just like he's such a commanding voice, and he's such a big guy as well, physically a big guy, and like that. I think this.
Oh, he's an Easter Island head. He's huge.
But like that series was made 2003. So yeah, I mean, like he was like early 40s when he made it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just such a, like, you know, such a commanding presence on it. And your man Nick Stahl, I mean, he's been in other stuff, and I was never overly impressed with him.
Yeah.
He was in Terminator 3. He's Sean Connor in Terminator 3. He's the yellow bastard.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff as well. He's good in that, but in a lot of stuff you're just kind of like, whatever. But yeah, like in that I was like, again, he pulls it off. It's the reluctant hero, and he does it so well. But he's also like the flawed hero. He hates everything about him. He has so many bad qualities, but you're like, this just makes it more kind of interesting.
Clancy Brown, of course, is big dude from Highlander. The prison guard from Shawshank.
Chief Officer Hadley.
He's Starship Trooper.
He is Zim. Yes, yeah. He's Drill Sergeant Zim, who's then busted out to private because he's told the only way he's going to make the front line is if he becomes a private. And he is
SpongeBob SquarePants employer.
Yes, he is Mr. Krabs.
Sorry, I just want to do a quick fire test.
He is also in just in terms of voice acting. So he's done. He's Dr. Neo Cortex in Crash Bandicoot.
Yes.
He's Hades in God of War.
I haven't played God of War.
He's one of the main bosses in the World of Warcraft game.
Right.
He's Scourge Arturnus in the second expansion. He's where else are we? There's a few of them here. Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob SquarePants. He is Otto in Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go. He's Gorath. He's one of the bad guys. He's the leader of the main bad guy faction in Megas XLR, that's actually a cult series. That series is phenomenal. But and then like in the DC universe, in the DC universe, he all the way through the Tim Bruce series of Batman, Superman, JLA, JLU. He's Lex Luthor.
I'm pretty sure he's in one of the episodes where Lex Luthor ends up in the body of the Flash.
Yeah, him and the Flash swap.
And he ends up
to play as the Flash.
Yeah, but
the thing is, the guy who voices the Flash in the DC animated universe is Michael Rosenbaum, who plays Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Oh, there you go.
That was part of the joke, was to swap the two Lex Luthors. And there's a point where he pulls off the mask. He's like, I have no idea who this is. He
goes like, well, in the Flash's body, he goes, well, at least I get to finally find out who the Flash is. And he whips off his mask. He's just staring in the mirror. And he goes, I don't know who the fuck this is. I have no idea who this is.
So he's also been in Batman Beyond. He's big time. Who's one of the that's one that's set in the future. He's Trident in Teen Titans. In The Batman, which is the one I mentioned before, where it's Batman that's done in a kind of an anime style, and it was the one that didn't have Mark Hamill do the Joker, and it didn't have Kevin Conroy do Batman. He voices Mr. Freeze.
Right.
And he does Batman. Sorry, he does Bane in it as well. He's Mr. Freeze and Bane. He's Parallax in the live-action Green Lantern film. Like he's
Gets
like
around.
DC love him.
Yeah.
DC love him. They just keep putting him in everything. Um, and he's been in Marvel a bit as well. He was in some of the cartoons for Marvel. He's Mr. Sinister on Wolverine, the X-Men. Um, he's Red Hulk in the Hulk and Agents of Smash. And yeah, he's also in the Daredevil and Punisher TV series. He's a major Schoonover, Frank Castle's commanding officer.
I did not know he was.
And he voices Surtur in Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, does he?
This is the thing. He's been in he is embedded in nerd culture so hard.
Yeah,
he's just everywhere because of that voice. But yeah, he's obviously the Kurgan. I think was kind of the original one that kind of.
Yeah, that's the one if I remember him, that's the one I always go all the way back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and I just think he's great. He's also he was in the reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street. He played the father of one of the kids.
Oh, did he?
So, but enough about my fanboy obsession.
In terms of games, it's kind of a weird one because gaming itself was a cult underground thing for so long that like it was such non-mainstream for so long that lots and lots of stuff got what I would consider to be a cult following, but like it would have been the biggest game in the world there and then. Like things like Wipeout, where they were playing it in nightclubs, where like people were having.
No, that was just hackers. Don't pretend that was actually being played in nightclubs. That was just hackers.
All right, so maybe it was also the movie Hackers, but like it had the whole Orbital soundtrack. People were putting it up on big screens in nightclubs.
It wasn't just Orbital; it was Prodigy, a few others. There was a lot, Future Sound in London, a few other electronic acts.
Apparently, there was different soundtracks depending on which, what region you bought as well. So,
yeah,
it was kind of impressive. I was gonna talk about my cult classic game to be Polybius, which is a completely fictional game that is an urban legend.
I was just about to go like that sounds familiar. This is the one that was made by the CIA, right?
Yes, I was going to just start talking about it as if it was real. Yeah,
with the CIA.
It was one. I just love the story around it. That it was an arcade game that showed up. Like it's such a moral panic story. Arcade game that showed up, and people would play it and then have seizures, and then men in suits would come and take away that machine, and it would show up somewhere else. And you're like, before the internet, that's exactly the kind of story that would spread. That's so funny.
Oh yeah. Well, like everybody obviously knew it was true because everybody's uncle worked for Nintendo.
Of course, yeah. Love that everyone's Western uncle worked for Nintendo.
Yeah. Obviously.
The game then that I'll talk about. There's games I wish had a cult following. There's games like the Stanley Parable that I thought was amazing, and it's just clearly a little arty walking simulator. And I want loads of people talking about that, and it was kind of a one shot. I think the game that has the biggest cult following for me is American McGee's Alice.
Okay.
Because but the amount of love that went into it, I love that game so much.
I'm just thinking. No, sorry. Brief aside.
Yep.
I had videos on in the background the other day while I was writing something. And I had Funhouse videos on. Funhouse, for anyone who doesn't know, they're a comedy YouTube gaming channel. They do improv comedy based off gaming. Definitely worth checking out. And they do a comments show every so often where they give feedback and comments. And they mentioned American McGee's Alice. I think they were playing on a demo disc, and someone and they were taking the piss out of him.
Yeah. And
someone wrote in going, "That's kind of harsh considering his sister's gone missing, because his sister went missing about 1.5 years ago."
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, we feel kind of bad because we'll rip the shit out of people if they're dead, but when someone's missing, it's the whole unknown thing." And then it waited about 2 minutes, and then one of the guys from Funhouse turns around and goes, "Next comment is from American McGee. It's like, never mind my missing sister. Where's my missing career?" I'm a bad human being. Anyway, carry on.
No, it's a thing. I still listen to the soundtrack of it. The guys who put it together, American McGee, he was in ID Software back in the day. He would have worked on Doom and Quake, and he kind of went off to do his own thing. It's like, for what it was at the time, which was, people running around Quake levels shooting at each other. It was absolutely beautiful. Like, it looks really kind of janky and stuff now, but the animation in it was so well done that like the low poly stuff is kind of forgivable. And it's such a weird, it's the game that I'm surprised people are still cosplaying. Like it was never big enough that like it had all these really kind of. It's not like Lara Croft or Metal Gear Solid or something like that.
And they did do a second one, so that's kind of kept it in the pop culture.
Yeah, the Madness Returns. But although if I see a cosplay, it's always something from the original. One of the weird things as well is she changes outfits a lot she changes outfits to show how powerful she's becoming. And I see people cosplaying all of her different outfits, all of Alice's different outfits, which is kind of a weird one. But yeah, when it is probably like we were kind of saying about a movie, you wouldn't really change anything, and it's still like it has a vibe that you just want to maintain. I feel like it's the game that has the most authorship, and maybe it's just because the dude stuck his fucking name on it. But like he worked with the guys putting the sound together. He worked with the guys with. He made some of the music. He got Marilyn Manson in to do some music for them, and he worked with him and did that music. They worked with the style of like they wanted to make music with toy boxes and children's musical instruments and stuff, and you hear that in the soundtrack.
And fairground music as well. Like,
yeah,
that kind of
And it's got that Burton-esque kind of everything slightly warped and slightly evil, and a little bit Todd McFarlane as well, where it's like, how can I make an evil version of the thing that everybody knows? And just starting from that premise, I feel it feels really cohesive.
That's probably why I hate it so much.
The Burton-esque qualities. Yeah, I could see that. I could see someone playing it and basically seeing a door appear, and it's got like the sides are wonky and it's got a couple of swirls, and going, "Fuck this, I'm out." That's exactly the kind of.
It's like the Marilyn Manson thing. It's like I'm sure he comes in and he's like, "So, what do you want me to do?" And he's like, "I want you to do Danny Elfman." Fuck off.
It's this. Hang on. Pling, 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 pling. It's like okay. Yeah, all right. Danny Elfman. We're doing Danny Elfman. No, it is the perfect kind of cult classic thing to me, where everything is ridiculously stylish. Everything, like the storyline that they go through, the classic Alice in Wonderland style. Everything has some violent or twisted quality to it. But it genuinely is funny as well. Like the posh British Alice character going through all these wacky situations, and like in the original book, like commenting on it, like, "Oh, isn't this queer?" I was only joking there. I don't actually really hate the game. It was a game I played and I was kind of like, yeah, it's all right. The one thing it seems to remind me of, though, is kind of a weird mix of if you took Day the Tentacle and kicked it through Abe's Odyssey. That's kind of the game it reminds me of. It is. It's got that. Yeah, everything is slightly wrong, but in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way, kind of. I think there was a point in making games where everyone realized that not only did they have extra pixels and stuff to play with, but they could start making things look dirty. Mm-hmm. And there was a point with war movies especially where I think they were making Zulu and something else at the same time. And like Zulu is all very clean and everybody's wearing their, everything looks like a costume. And there was another movie that came out that year, and I can't think of it now, but they made everybody fucking filthy. Like they wanted war as filthy.
Bridge over River Kwai?
Something possibly like that. And just if you look at the two of them that came out at the same time, you can see the moment that people were like, no. People like, it's not people standing on stage reading lines anymore. If we want to make it real, we can make shit dirty. And then there was a bunch of games that came out, which was American McGee's Alice, Twisted Metal, Abe's Odyssey. They were all on the PlayStation now, and they could make Rust. They could make these horrible textures. They could make like particle effects of burps and farts and all sorts of things for Abe's Odyssey.
Yeah.
And it was a level of visceralness that they couldn't ever do before.
Well, I don't know. Abe's Odyssey was trying to be Earthworm Jim so hard it hurt. It wanted so badly to be Earthworm Jim without actually getting sued for copyright.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, a great thing to aspire to, but if you're going to be that obvious about it.
And I think the kind of last point in American McGee is everything up until then was, you're in Doom or Quake, you're in a red room or a blue room or a brown room, and it all looks dingy and dark, but there was a level of fantasy and fantasticness that came with it. And if everything was just this room and then stairs and then this room and then stairs, it wouldn't have that Alice in Wonderland feel. But there's one where you're walking towards a castle and there's tentacles breaking out of it, and you're suddenly in a place where you're going, wait, like I'm seeing curves, I'm seeing undulating movement, I'm seeing things pulse and move, and you can jump up in the tentacles and run along them, and suddenly you're not in rooms anymore. You are like running along splines, you're running along all these things. They did a lot with the geometry that made it really nice. And there is a place where you go in and there's a hole in the floor and you realize the building you're in is flying through space. And it is one of the best skybox scenes I've ever seen, where like there's a warp tunnel whipping past you, but there are other rooms that you've already been in moving past you. There's things moving past you. And like to this day, I can't quite figure out exactly how they did it, whether it was that you are warping between these different blocks or whether it is all just faked. But it felt really, really nice. I've seen some of the Harry Potter games after that do these effects, but I think it was the first one that played with that. There's also a scene where you become a chess piece and you have to change which chess piece you are in order to move, and you realize you've got a straight diagonal shot at something, so you have to become a bishop to try and get across the room to the thing you want to get to. There's a lot of fucking around with movement and geometry and like a lot of Esker painting style shit that felt really nice in that and just felt like a step forward.
Yeah. I mean, like it did some good stuff. It was one of those games. I think around the time when I tried it out, it didn't grab me a huge amount. I was just kind of like, yeah, this is interesting, but you know, I think that's one thing with gaming is that like there's so much that comes out, that it is easy to just miss something that should have a big impact. And I feel like that kind of what American McGee's Alice was, is that there was so much hype leading up to it, and so many people were like, yeah, this is going to be great. I remember seeing it in every like computer game magazine for maybe a year.
And there was cutouts of it everywhere, of either of Alice or of the Cheshire Cat.
And you were like, yeah, this is going to be a big deal. And then for whatever reason, when it landed, it was just kind of a blip and then kept going.
I think it was like Brutal Legend. I think it did too much because it had a really trippy storyline of like, you know, Alice is absolutely insane and you're in her head doing stuff. Like this is all just the ramblings of a mad person rather than an actual thing. So they were trying to sell that story and trying to sell all this weird geometric non-Euclidean platformer bullshit. And it was weird music and it was weird characters. It might have just been a bit much.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to, like, I'm looking at it as what else came out that year that might have just been distracting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, was there any big ones? But like, because it, like, that's the thing, it came out around December, so it was trying to hit the Christmas market and all the rest. But based on what else was the big, what were the other big releases?
It came out. That's the problem. It came out on PC.
No, but even then, I mean, like some of the biggest games of all time have just come out on PC, and people are still going fucking mental for it.
Yeah, it's still.
And I'm not just talking about recently or even like in the last say 10 to 12 years. I mean, like even cited them earlier, the likes of Doom, the likes of Quake, the likes of Day of the Tentacle, all those, like they all, you know, Sam and Max, they were all huge games that everybody experienced.
But those are all mouse and keyboard games. This game was a third-person platformer. Like I do remember playing it on PC. I always thought it was a PS2 game, and I just happened to play it on PC. That's so weird.
Yeah, like I can tell you right now, just looking at it, the list of video game franchises which debuted in 2000, and I can tell you how many of these I was playing rather than playing American McGee's Alice. Deus Ex, Hitman, Onimusha,
yep,
Perfect Dark, The Sims, Time Splitters, Total War. Yeah, like all of those type of games, like Jet Set Radio.
Oh yeah, speaking of cult classics.
You know what I mean? That's the thing, like all those type of games. If SSX, these are all the series that debuted, and they all would have come out around the same time that year. They all would have landed at some point between October, maybe end of September and December. So it was up against all of those games.
I am still to this day amazed that they don't do an Alice game every 3 years. I think of all the franchises that came out and had and well enough known first one and then just milk sequels out of it, I really thought they could have just kept going with that and done a different version of Wonderland every year, because every time you go back it can be something completely different. Like it could be the God of War franchise.
Yeah, the problem with it though is that it was owned by EA.
Right.
So as soon as it doesn't make money or isn't meeting their profit standards, they'll just cut it.
Yeah. Yep.
So they were working on a Counter-Strike offshoot, but when they got shut down. and the game before they got shut down was American McGee's Alice. So,
yeah,
it's unfortunate, but I mean, like, it is the nature of the beast that it's, particularly if you're under EAAA's ownership, they'll just, you're not making us enough money. See you later. So,
what was your choice for the games?
Eternal Darkness. Another cheery choice.
Fantastic.
So Eternal Darkness, which was a launch title for the GameCube, and just to make you feel old, the GameCube was released in 2002.
Wow.
Yeah, because most people can remember buying that. But like, I remember going over and it was like, was it with your confirmation? When he was like, no, I had a job and like I saved, and it's like, yeah, 2002. And like,
Jesus,
16 years ago. Oh, okay.
Yep.
So it's by Silicon Knights. So it was Dennis Dyack who was behind it, the guy who went on to do Too Human.
Yep.
And the Silicon Knights also worked on the original Legacy of Kain game, Blood Omen.
Ah, yes, that's right.
So it was an interesting game in that, like, there was a couple of things that did that were very well. It was one of those games that managed to try and break a lot of boundaries and did them all successfully, I felt. It actually tried to, like, so you play as what's her name, Olivia Royce, and you're looking into you're like a 19-year-old college student, and you're called back to the family mansion that you haven't visited in 20 years or in 15 years. Like you were there as a kid, and your grandfather is being killed, and you have to go investigate why. And because the police don't exist.
There was a few games that came out that had those Scooby-Doo intros all at once, where it was like, how do we get people into this old mansion as quick as possible?
Yeah, and I mean, even Resident Evil was one of them.
You have to respect their one of just, you're being chased by dogs, get into the mansion.
yeah. But there's a whole thing of, so you find the Tome of Eternal Darkness, and most of the pages on it are ripped out. And the Tome of Eternal Darkness is, for all intents and purposes, the Necronomicon Ex Mortis from Evil Dead. It kind of looks like it. It's written on flayed human skin and blood and bound in human skin and all the rest, and it's essentially the Necronomicon.
I think we're gonna have to start a trope of just Lovecraft in all but name, which is just basically.
This is the thing. That's what Eternal Darkness is, and it's probably as I said earlier, I'm a big fan of Lovecraft. It's probably why I've picked this, but subconsciously. But some of the things it did quite well is one was it had multiple paths through it. So you first read the book and you experience, it changes your character. So as the game progresses, you find different chapters of the book and read them. And as you read them, you experience them as the character who wrote it. So this allows the game to be set over roughly 2,500 years, I believe it is, or it could be like 2,100 years. Set in multiple different areas. A temple in Cambodia that you visit in 2 different time periods. There's a monastery in France you visit in 2 different time periods. There is an underground city in Iraq. There is a Roman outpost.
Yeah, I remember the Roman one.
And that's the first thing. Pius Augustus. So the very first thing you read is you're Pius Augustus, who is a Roman centurion, and you find the temple of the old ones, and there's like these 4 gods that are mentioned in it, and like Mantarak is one of them, and Chaturga and Uliolith, and I can't remember the 4th of them. And basically, he comes across the book, but when he finds it, there's 3 copies of it. Each one has a different rune behind it, and you choose which one you pick up. And when he picks it up, he is turned into a lich. He is turned into an undead sorcerer who cannot die, and he becomes all shriveled and all the rest. But whatever one you pick up, the rune behind it is now what god you're fighting against, because you play essentially the first chapter. The prologue is you're playing the character, you go to the house, you explore, and then the first proper chapter is you're playing as Pius Augustus. And you're choosing who you're playing against for the rest of the game. You're playing as the bad guy in chapter 1. You pick the god. Say you pick Uliolith. Uliolith fucks with sanity, and this is one of the other kind of key things in it. You had 3 meters. You had your health, you had your magic, and you had your sanity. Every time you went into a room and you encountered an enemy, they would flash green briefly, and you would lose an amount of sanity. The only way to regain that sanity was to defeat that monster. It was to prove to yourself they can be beaten, they can be killed. And these are these grotesque things that were stitched together. I mean, like, they look like something out of an early version of Dead Space or something. And you play your way through it, but as the lower the sanity gets, because you might have really low health, so you're like, I can't afford to fight this guy, so I'm just going to try and run past him, which you can do, but you've now lost that sanity. And occasionally you'll find things that restore the sanity, but if you don't, the game starts fucking with you. For example, there's a point where you're running through a library in the house, and you're low sanity, and just at the very bottom of the screen, and done in such a way that you wouldn't really notice it other than the corner of your eye, a book will float across.
Yeah.
Or in the distance, you'll hear a baby crying. Or the front doorbell will ring, and you'll go to answer the front door, and the handle will fall off, and you can't get out the front door anymore. And these are like the subtle ones for when you're at the store. You go into a room, and there's ammo everywhere, and you start picking it all up, and then it flashes, and you're back outside the door, and you haven't gone into that room, and your character starts crying because they don't know what's going on. That level of creativity that they put into it, and there was over 80 different hallucination effects in the game. I think it was closer to about 200, because there was multiple different ones that were location specific. So we went back to different locations in different time zones. If you didn't experience it the first time around, you could still experience it the second time around. There was also ones that were character specific, and then there was ones that were weapon specific and god specific, depending on what god you were fighting against.
You're kind of hinting at all the ones that are in game, all the ones that are like, this is something that the character experiences. Are really.
Oh, there's the ones that you experience. Yeah. There's the ones like when you go to save the game and it says, "Are you sure you wish to overwrite?" And he says yes, and then a bar comes up saying deleting save progress.
Yeah.
And then it looks like it deletes your save game, and you're like, "What? No, what's going on?" And that one can't happen within the first 5 hours of gameplay.
That one, that's brilliant.
And then there's ones where like you'll go to do something, and then the screen will flicker, and then you get the GameCube logo dropping down and spinning around again, as if the machine had reset itself. Or you go to walk through a door and it stops and says, "Find out what happens next summer in Eternal Darkness."
I did like the ones where the sound goes down and the volume comes up on screen and just starts going down, and you start looking for the remote as if you sat in it, and you're like, of course, I'm playing it on a projector. Of course, there's no volumes. But like you're so into it, you're just like, oh shit, hang on. There was one where they just fly lands on the screen. Yeah. And you continue playing, but it's right there on the screen. You're like, oh god.
There's a lot of that. There was one I distinctly remember when you walk up the central staircase in the mansion and you turn to the right, there's a bust of one of your ancestors. But if your sanity's low enough, when you run around the corner, the bust tracks you. But the camera's moving in such a way that you're not sure if the head is moving or not. Yeah. There
was ones like that where busts would turn into you, the character, as well sometimes.
Yeah.
There's ones where you walk into, there's certain rooms you walk into and everything's on the ceiling, and you, like, the room's upside down and you're walking on the ceiling, you walk in. And then like that, it flickers and you're back into the start of the room again.
Or as ones you're walking on and your head just falls off. And then your head starts shouting at you.
I genuinely thought I dreamt that one.
No, it does happen.
Something similar happened to me in real life. So I walked into a room that had 3 mannequins.
Were you on cat again?
No, I wasn't on any sort of cat. I was just run-of-the-mill cocaine. No, but I walked into a storage room one time. There was 3 mannequins, and I had to walk to the back of the room. And when I turned around to come back, one of their heads just fell off and like rolled around the ground. I was like, and I was like, worst thing is I have to step over that now to get out of this room. I was like, oh no time to stop here. Let's just keep moving forward.
Hiya, Georgie.
Hiya, Georgie.
It was a really well crafted game, and they tried to get a sequel going. So, Silicon Knights went under.
Yeah.
Right. Years later, and it was a shame because I actually was one of the people who liked Too Human because I think I knew what to expect. A lot of people were like, "What is this? This isn't the game I was looking for," and not realizing that it was essentially Diablo, but third person, but you're all Norse gods.
Yep.
There was some core case involving Epic Games, and that's basically why they went under. But they did Too Human, they did Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, they did Blue Omen, they did...
When did Twin Snakes come out? Because...
2004.
There's so many psychological effects in the Metal Gear Solid games as well, that I'd wonder at what point did they start getting influenced by Silicon Knights.
Well, so here's the thing. Silicon Knights picked a fight with Epic Games because Epic Games failed to provide a working game engine. Because Epic Games are the guys who make Unreal.
Yep.
And they lost the case. And Dennis Dyack ended up leaving. And then very short, about a year and a half later, the studio shut down. But he was like, it's fine. And like, it's, you know, even like Too Human. Too Human was meant to be part of a trilogy. And I really wanted to see the rest of that trilogy.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that was going against it was that it didn't have randomization on the tile sets when you went to replay the levels. So the level layouts were always the same. But it was a looter shooter. It was Destiny, but like fucking, you know, 10 years before Destiny. He was like, I'm going to do Shadow of the Eternals, which is going to be the sequel to Eternal Darkness. Everything went wrong. Everything. So they started a Kickstarter, and then they scrapped the Kickstarter because they were like about halfway through, because it didn't look like it was going to make the money. But then they were like, no, actually, we've got some people who are going to like match the fund, a certain amount of the funding, if we raise whatever amount we raise, they're going to match X percentage of it.
Yep.
So we're going to adjust the funding slightly, make it a bit easier for our fans to get it going, but we'll still be able to do the same amount of thing. You're like, okay, in theory that sounds great.
Yep.
Because you're now making it easier for you to hit your goal and get funded. Great. And then that got cancelled. And then maybe like 3 months later they went, we were trying to sort stuff out, because they originally wanted to do it in, I think it was 10 2-hour episodes. And they were like each chapter would be a different episode. And they were like, no, we're just going to do it as one like 12-hour experience. Be fine. And they did another Kickstarter, and this one was significantly less than the previous two. And then that failed to get funded. Then one of the other major people involved in the studio got arrested for child pornography. And
that'll do it.
They're like, right, we've nothing to do with him. And they cut ties with him, and it's just been issue after issue after issue trying to get this thing made.
I remember that weird period of time where people were trying to figure out how to find some other way to sell people games, and it was Kickstarter and episodic. But you really have to have a percentage of a game made before even one episode is worth playing. Like,
yeah, to be honest, I think if you're going to do anything with Kickstarter, and this is for anyone out there who's ever, you know, interested in making their own games, if you want to release something through Kickstarter, great, make the game first. You use Kickstarter to publish it. You use Kickstarter if you're like, I have this game and all I need, I've done everything. I've coded it, I've built the maps, I've done everything. The one thing I can't do is art. If you Kickstarter this, I'll use that money to hire this artist. Here's his portfolio. He's already set me a price. This is how much I need. He's going to completely reskin this game to make it look as good as his art quality. And the rest of the money goes on publishing it. That's how you do it. You don't go, I've got this idea. It's like everyone's a fucking idea. It's, yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to write this novel that I have been I've been thinking about for a while.
Great, but that's the thing. It's like, unless you've proven your work previously, and it's kind of different with games design because it's not one person or two people working on something like it is with a comic or a book, or even with an album where it's like 3 artists or like, you know, 4 members of a band. Games with a computer game is usually 10, 15, 20 people for a decent level game.
Yep.
And it's like 3 of them have made a game before, and they go, we've got this idea for a game, and I made that game 4 years ago. Do you want to give me all this money so I can make the game? And they're like, yeah, but who are the rest of the guys? You got a lot of unpaid interns. They don't know what they're doing. And no offense to unpaid interns, but like, that's not the environment they should be learning in. So, you know,
Speaking of episodic download or content, things like that, I played American McGee's other game, which was American McGee's Grimm.
Yeah.
Where each episode, it was supposed to be 23 parts. Each episode was a fairy tale that you played through the Disney version and turn it back into the evil version, the Brothers Grimm version. But of course, the good version was just a really saccharine, over the top version, and the evil version was like a Tim Burton version. So you go through fairy tales and make
23 episodes, you say? Maybe you release.
I'm just checking that now. I remember playing Boy Who Learns What Fear Is, which is one of the first ones. I think he got up to episode 8. Oh, according to this, he got to 16.
Well, there you go.
As seasons. And it was what Splatoon is now. You run around and cover an entire area with like your grim like crack.
Ejaculate.
And, yes. And it was a little bit of a parkour platformy kind of thing where you had to get to weird places to make stuff happen. And if you ran through in the right order, the story played out correctly. But of course you didn't fucking do it in the right order. Of course you just ran around everywhere. Like it was such a time killer kind of game. But I wonder if there is a following for that. I think they were weeks apart or 2 weeks apart. And like you just lost the someone here has compared it to Katamari Damacy. It was very like that. You just had to cover the entire level. But they released them. I seem to remember them being a week apart, and literally after 3 weeks, I couldn't care less. Like there's just something about somebody saying you play a game this time per week, and it's like 2 hours of gameplay at most. It just was terrible. It was the worst distribution idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, the episodic gaming thing, I'm not a fan of it for the most part. It's one thing to set out and go, I have a trilogy in mind, but the first one's still a self-contained story, so if it's not huge, I've still released a good story.
Yeah.
That's fine. Or if they go, I have a trilogy in mind, and the first part will be the game, and then the other two will be DLC, because I'm building the engine, I'm building the world, I'm building the characters, and I'm putting it all in there, and then it's just repurposing them.
Yep.
You're like, great. But when someone goes, yeah, it's 6 episodes, it's like, call me when you release the whole package, because I don't give a shit before that.
The only one I played that I liked was the Telltale Games Monkey Island. And even then, I played the first one, really liked it, and just left it a year and said I'll come back and just play them all at once. There's no point trying to keep a joke going across multiple episodes if you're making me wait for new episodes to come out. And of course, they were delayed. And of course, like, by the later episodes, I can see them reusing models and animations and skins for characters from the earlier episodes to the point that I thought it was a joke, but they were just like scrambling to get shit out at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the episodic thing, I think when you set out to it and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to do 6 or 7, or we're going to have a season of 12 or whatever. I think what happens then is, just from my own impression of playing a few of them, the only one that I ever played that was actually seemed to be decent was the Hitman one. But again, I played that after it had been finished. Yeah. And each setting was a mission, was a chapter, and I was like, I still don't mind this because each one feels well crafted. But it felt like the majority of them to feel like there's a very much, oh, we can put that in a later one. Yeah. And this seems to be a problem that kicks up too much, where they're like, we can do that in a later one. We can push that in episode 3. We can do that in episode 4. And what happens is episode 1 and 2 don't really have that much in it, and you don't give a shit.
There's literally a joke in Monkey Island, the Telltale ones, where there's a chest that's just sitting there, and it's called the chest that will not be opened in this episode. And you can examine it, you can keep fucking poking at it, and in the second episode you die, and you become a ghost. And you walk over to it, and it's still called the chest that will not be opened in this episode. And you can stick your head into it to see what's inside. And he pulls his head out and goes, it's just dark inside. And you're like, everything you do to try and examine this chest to find out what's inside, they just keep pushing it to later and later episodes. I think it's open in the last episode.
That's fine, though. That's a joke, and that's the intention of that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was obviously someone went, what if we put this in, and it's there for minute 1, but you don't know what's in until the end of the last episode. The problem, though, with a lot of episodic gaming is that it's almost like the paralysis of choice. You're giving the designers and the storytellers too much room. You need to, like, if you look at anything, you look at any major scale game, you look at anything like, even like World of Warcraft, huge big fucking games, like 7 expansions now. But each expansion has a continent, an identifiable continent in it, bar one of them which is dotted around 2 other continents. But it was unlocking the areas that previously had been locked on those 2 continents. You go to each of those continents, you're like, cool. There's now 20 areas. You click on that area. There's maybe 3 quest chains in that entire area, 3 to 5. So they're able to go, this is this area, this is the level, this is the theme, these are the enemies, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys.
Yep.
This is the 4 types of quests we want, the quest chain we want, go. And it's directed. And it's very much self-contained, and it's like, you go in and you just do that part. You have to write that quest and write it. Grand job, well done, brilliant. Move on to the next one. When you have episodic gaming, people only ever look at the first one. Whereas like when you look at something like an MMO, when they have that map and they go, right, so we know what we need to have in the entire thing here. So we start plugging it in.
Yep.
Okay, what are we missing? Now we got to reshuffle things around. Episodic gaming, for the most part, seems to be they have overarching story, they have 6 rough chapters, and then they detail the first one and build that. Then they detail the second one and build that. Then they detail the third. They're not detailing all of them because they want to save time. And they're like, oh, we might not get to the 6th one because what if the game doesn't do well?
Yeah.
Which is a defeatist attitude. But if they actually sat down and went, let's fully script everything. Okay, now let's start building it.
The worst side of that would be if they start changing stuff based on how the first one was received, and you're like, no, lads, if you had something fucking in mind, just commit to it.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with somebody going like, oh, we made an entire series. Every episode is done. You're gonna get one a month for the next 6 months. That's going to cost you $10 a month. So you're still going to pay the same amount you would have paid for the full game. It's just easier on a monthly budget. How does that sound? You're like, cool. That's what episodic gaming should be, and that's the way episodic gaming was originally explained as being.
Yep.
And I think Hitman was the only one that I can remember properly sticking to it.
Hitman.
Where they were like,
I'd never played that Hitman, but it makes so much sense to me because I've seen people play Hitman levels over and over and over again. That if you release a new level, that's potentially like I'm going to get 9 playthroughs of that because I want to see everything in it.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing. I have to do everything and make it all look like accidents. Okay, I have to do everything and only use the garrote wire. Okay, I have to do everything and everything has to be a hand-to-hand takedown. And there's challenges you can set yourself in that environment. The ones I absolutely hate are the Telltale ones because they're not games, they're books, they're graphic novels. There is no choice. There's no effective choice. There's no deviation. There's no little details you can explore yourself and find, which is what I like about games when you're playing through them. It's like, yes, I went into that room there myself, which I didn't have to, and I found that book and I was able to read the book and find a little bit out about the storyline. Whereas this thing is, and then you did this, and then this happened, and did you go left or right? You went left, and then this happened, and then this happened. And it's like, I don't give a shit because you're just going to lap me back around to the same point if I went right. Just down to the left, I have to pull I have to kill a zombie, and down to the right, I have to decide which bandit I want to shoot. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to the same point. It's the most forgiving, QuickTime event-driven cutscene ever.
Is the entire game?
Yes, it's an entire Telltale.
There's so many games like that where they claim to have multiple endings, and what I'll do is if I think I'm at a point where I'm near the end, I'll save it, play through the end, and then go back and make the last choice. And there's generally PlayStation 2 era, you could generally do that. You could kind of see where you were coming up to a big choice near an end of a game. Yeah. Nowadays, I don't have time for that. I'll play through a game, I'll make all the choices that I think the character would make. I always play in character, and then I might watch a couple of the other endings on YouTube. And sometimes they're absolutely insane, sometimes they're a little bit predictable. Sometimes, like with the Until Dawn, which I did really like, they ask you whether you're more scared of, I think, clowns or zombies, and I said clowns, and it was clowns all the way through, and I watched the ending with zombies instead, and I swear to God people would react exactly the same. It's just a clown pops up and they go, ugh! But it's just a mask on a dummy. You're like, I've seen that scene with both clowns and zombies and they don't do anything different. But the Telltale one, as much as I love The Wolf Among Us, it is absolutely just a graphic novel. But I read the ending and then I started searching around to try and find the other endings. No, that's it. And they're like, no, that's the ending you get. I'm like, but I made so many choices, I think. Surely there are multiple endings.
Irrelevant.
And they're like, no, what? It depends. Either somebody's alive at the end or not, and that's it. You still get an open-ended, that's Chinatown ending, no matter what.
Yep.
And I just
and that just infuriates me with those games. That it's like the pacing of them as well is annoying because it's like I could read this book faster myself. So, that's just my own view on it. I'm not a big fan of them, but I mean, I think that's why I picked out the games I picked. Game I picked out of Eternal Darkness. It was one that there was multiple paths through it, and it's one of those ones that there is you choose your bad guy at the very start, and that changes how boss fights work. That changes how your own progression through the game will work. That changes the cutscenes. It'll change the final fight with the final boss where you fight Pious Augustus. And then there's the whole thing of when you finally defeated all three, because you can choose to essentially New Game Plus it and pick a different enemy. When you defeat all three, then you see a special fourth ending. And that's like, great. Now I feel actually like, yeah, there's an entire extra cutscene, and while it was only small, it was really enjoyable because I didn't feel like I was just grinding the same game again, because it was like all the enemies are different, and now my stats are different because I've chosen to.
Yep.
Like the three gods were like rock, paper, scissors. So whichever one he picks, the god that's against it, that like beats it in the chain, will try and boost you, whether you want it or not. So there was like it changed up how you played the game, and I'm like, yeah, great. Now I feel like there's an effect, there's an impact to this. But
we'll have to. I have Eternal Darkness at home, and I have the Wii. We'll have to find some way to hook it up and start doing a couple of playthrough videos of these things, because there are some old games like this that I want to introduce people to, but I can't fucking ask them to play it. Like, I can't say, all right, break out your Wii and spend 30 quid on eBay finding an old copy of this very well thought of game and do this, and this, so I can talk to you about a mute sanity effect where it mutes the screen for a second, and I think it's very funny, but you won't.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if it's something, yeah, we should try and figure out some way to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's us done.
Cool. All right, enjoy whatever time it is there in Bangkok.
10 past midnight.
It's 10 past midnight. All right. It's just dinner time for me. I'll start eating my pocky on this side.
Yeah.
All right.
To keep going. So.
Have fun.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.